stay on focus or stay on topic with the idea of the universal income. But I don't have a lot of time this morning, so I have to go to work. So I'm just gonna record on my way to work. Um, I'm in two groups on Facebook. One is called "Is God Here," and the other one is Atheism versus Christianity. Atheism versus Christianity pretty much is what it has been. The argument between the idea of atheism and religion, because religion has Christianity. I usually, whenever I speak on religion and or theology, I typically address Christianity not as a deliberate attack against Christians. It's just because I was raised in a Christian environment. My father didn't raise me Christian, but the United States is predominantly a Christian nation. It's the default religion. If you are growing up in America and you don't have any type of actual cultural alignment with something different, just by consequence of being in America, you will wind up either Christian or Jehovah's Witness. Those are the two default religions in this country. So that's the reason why I always kind of push against Christianity specifically when I speak on religion. I'm not an atheist. I don't believe that. My position is that there's no need to ask the question of what is a God. And the moment that you define what a God is in the terms of us existing as beings on this planet, you have to, by your own definition of what a God is, you have to accept the fact that God doesn't exist. Just by the nature of when we define existence and what that means, right? So I don't consider myself a Christian because of that. I mean, I don't consider myself an atheist because of that, because I don't believe that the universe, I don't think the question needs to be asked. I don't think that the title or the description needs to even be a thing, right? You can have an opinion, you can have an understanding of something, and your understanding of that thing can be wrong. And I think inherently the question is the wrong question. The question is wrong, so the answer can never be correct because you've already started with the wrong question. What we're trying to analyze and define and understand is framed incorrectly as a foundational principle. So everything that follows that is an argument from ignorance. It's nonsensical. So there's no need to even say I'm an atheist because I don't believe that God exists. I don't think that the whole of theology is structured properly to even address the situation to begin with, because religion was designed just to control humanity. That was its primary function, right? So I digress on that. The whole point of this video is I asked these two questions in this group. I asked the question, do you think that women should be allowed, should we give women universal basic income? I just want to debate about this conversation. I asked the question in the Christian and theology group, and I asked the question in It's Ghetto here, in both groups. Your posts have to be approved. They never got approved. The admins just didn't approve those questions. So I'm gonna make a video about it. I'm gonna talk about it. I've had this conversation back and forth with other people, and I've gotten mixed responses. And I don't really have a discussion that I want to talk about. Not really. There's a lot of little things going on in the world, but in general, there's not really a lot that I want to say. But I also want to consistently try to produce content for YouTube and upload so that I can build that habit and get into this space more. So basic universal income is basically, it will be defined as American just welfare, right? Like, it's the idea that you just give somebody money through taxes, and the money that you give to people through taxes is meant to provide for them at the expense of your labor, right? I don't know who it was, but a politician said something that was very profound. And when this person, I think it was a woman, when she said what she said in the context that she said it in, it made very good sense to me. And what she said was, I don't want to hear a billionaire talk about having billions of dollars when your employees have to subsidize their income using welfare and SNAP benefits, right? I don't care that you're a billionaire if your employees can't afford to live off of the income that they make just from being your employee. If you can't provide a basic income for a livable wage for the average person, then I don't want to hear that you're making profit, earnings, and all of that, like that rhetoric, right? There's two sides to this to this conflict. From my position as an African American male that has lived in America for more than 43 years and spent 6 years serving in the military, the biggest conflict in this world when it comes to society, and the reason why I make these videos for my 2 cents when it comes to the next generation, is that government exists solely to govern groups of people that will harm individuals. That is the whole point of a government. You are a person, and if you are walking down the street by yourself, you're safe. If you as a person, male or female, encounters another person, male or female, you have a high probability of being able to defend yourself in a one-on-one against anybody else. Even if you're a woman, having to defend yourself by a man that automatically outclasses you by weight, because men are inherently stronger than women, right? I'm not going down that tangent, but men are inherently stronger than women. So if a man is walking down the street by himself or out in the wild by himself and another man approaches him, there is a 50-50 chance that you can survive this encounter in general almost all the time. There's other variables that you can calculate outside of that, but on average, the average man and two average men encountering each other have a 50-50 chance of surviving that encounter with each other. There will always be a winner and there will always be a loser. But that is the gist of how society works, right? Government exists so that when I'm walking down the street by myself, minding my own fucking business, 5 other guys can't walk up on me and take all my shit because they outnumber me. That's government. Because if I'm walking down the street by myself and I'm alone, and 5 dudes walk up on me and attack me, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm like, man, if I wasn't alone, that wouldn't have happened. Let me go find 5 dudes. Hi, welcome to the stream. Let me also go find 5 dudes that I can walk down the street with, so that I don't have to worry about being attacked by another group of people, right? And so the first group is like, yeah, we did a good job attacking that one person. That one group is like, yeah, we should do that again. The next time they encounter me, I have my own group. Now it's 50-50 again. You got 5 guys, I got 5 guys. That was not meant to be a joke, but you got 5 guys, I got 5 guys. We fight each other. We have reduced the conflict back down to 50-50, right? So this is literally what government is. Government is designed to justify the interactions and regulate the interactions between groups of people, right? Corporations are, man, I have these 5, I need to walk down the street by myself and I'm not really that strong and I need to be able to protect myself. This is what a corporation is. I need 4 guys to walk down the street with me, right? So that I can be safe. So I need to figure out a way to get 4 guys to walk down the street with me. How am I going to do that, right? Well, I can give them money, right? Like, we could go through all the scenarios, but I could just give them money. If I give these people money in exchange for them to walk down the street with me to help keep me safe, then we will be in a corporation, right? Families are inherently going to protect each other. They are the first corporation, right? So governments have to protect people from other groups of families. So governments govern families to prevent families from interacting with each other and attacking each other. Families grow to become communities, communities grow to become cities, and then cities become city-states. The interaction between multiple families wedding each other and integrating with each other and having a mutual relationship on that level is what gave rise to the city-state. It's how we defined our fundamental structure of government. It doesn't matter if it's communist, it doesn't matter if it's capitalistic, socialistic, it doesn't matter if you're a king or monarch, it doesn't matter. The foundation of government came from families and families interacting with each other to give rise to larger and larger populations, right? And in the modern times, we have billions of people all connected across multiple diverse nationalities and ethnicities, right? Corporations have grown to a point where they have more power and more control than government. And this is the fundamental conflict. The fact that the government has less power and less authority because money was the defining factor of everything. And now corporations have more money than government through the negotiation and the manipulation of the government. The reason why the kings always made sure everybody had less money than them is so the king could always maintain its power and its authority. That was the only fundamental reason. And the reason why the church funded the courts is so that the courts would help push the agenda of the religion without having to directly get their hands dirty, right? They couldn't run around and go out of their way to murder and mayhem each other, but they could just be in alliance with the court. And if they're in alliance with the king and they're doing the will of the king, and the king needs the priesthood anyway to justify its authority, that is why we are where we are today, right? So all of that sets up universal basic income for women, right? Let me order this food and then I'll continue.
Thank you for choosing McDonald's. Would you like to use that mobile app today?
How can I help you?
I think I forgot my wallet.
Hello?
I forgot my wallet. I have to come back.
Oh.
Can't buy food without my wallet. I don't know how I left it. I had to set it down. Well, I guess I'll go home and get my wallet. So, universal basic income for women, right? Universal basic income for women is, hold on, let me slow down so I can actually read it. Bro, no one hears. Why are you yapping? I'm yapping because it's what I do. But anyway, universal basic income for women. What does this mean and how does this work? It basically means this. It means that the finances of the people, the taxes that we put into. Get out of the street! Get out of the street! Homeless people don't care about life anymore. But if I hit him, I go to jail. So he needs to get out of the street. The gist of what I'm implying is, I think I'm gonna go the wrong way. Is this gonna be right? I don't think this is gonna be right. Maybe it's gonna be right. I need to go through the lights. Our taxes would fund them getting their income, right? My taxes going to work. The government would take however much is necessary to be able to give income directly to women. So that any girl over the, and this applies to America, I can't talk for the whole world. So any girl over the age of 18 would be able to have low income, will be able to afford to live without having to work at the low income level in 2026. And it's important that we recognize that we live in a different time than we did in the past, right? The only stipulation, this is the same way I wrote this on the internet, on Facebook, is the only stipulation is an 18-year-old girl that is not working automatically applies to receive low income, basic income housing. Whether she's working or not, whether she's healthy or unhealthy, it doesn't matter. They all 100% of women in this country should be just given the money they need to be able to function at their level, at the low income, whatever low income is for America, that's what they would receive to be able to function in society. The only stipulation is if they choose to work, they don't get the income. If they choose to get a job and go out and work a job, they don't get the extra money. They don't get to have the low income and money and work a job at the same time. And if they quit working or get fired or whatever happens at any point in their time, they can always go back and reapply for a low income. This money will be given to them for as long as they're alive, right? Now, we have been given a lot of justifications as to why things like this won't work. But I want you to try to think critically about what I'm saying for a second, right? The number one consumers in the world are women. The number one reason why men get up and go to work is for what? To provide and take care of a woman. We can pretend all day like men legitimately get up and go to work to be functional members of society. I'm not going to argue the point. I'm not even going to go there with you. But the sad reality is that the only reason why we work these stupid jobs is so that we can potentially get into a space where we could be husbands and fathers and provide for families and have children to raise. Like, that is the reason why MGTOW began. That's the reason why Men Going Their Own Way began, because we are being taught as young boys that, yeah, you're gonna go to school, you're gonna get a degree, you're gonna go to college. Once you graduate college, you're gonna get a nice job. Once you get a nice job, you're gonna be able to afford to provide for a family, and then you're gonna be able to get a wife, and you're gonna be able to have kids, and you're gonna be able to live happily ever after. That is what we're sold. We're always sold this idea, like, this is what you should be doing, and this is what you should do. And part of your success is not just financially having money, it's also gaining access to women. This is the way men are taught. I want you to think about what I just said and think about what society is teaching girls. Society is teaching girls that to be successful as a woman, you have to reject the nature of being a woman. It is okay for a man to work, get a job, make enough money to be able to provide for a family and have kids and a wife to take care of. But simultaneously, society is teaching girls that they have to sacrifice all that stuff to be a successful woman. To be a successful woman, you have to sacrifice marriage, and you have to sacrifice having a child. That's what society is teaching women to view as being successful for them, right? And that's not me making it up or exaggerating the reality of how things are. That's what society is teaching them. Society is saying that to point blank and center. Like, this is what you have to do to get from where you are to where you're trying to be, right? And if you think about that, that's the conflict. The conflict is that society is telling men, if you get enough money, you'll be able to have a stable relationship with a woman. And simultaneously, society is telling women, if you get enough money, the sacrifice is you can't have a stable relationship with men. So you got men chasing money to get women, and you got women being conditioned to escape men for money. And then when we see the inequality between men and women, and we don't understand where it's coming from, that's the point of the corporations and the government, right? Like, that's the part that I'm trying to bring home. You can argue and debate with me, and you can tell me that my thinking process is incorrect and that I'm flawed in my understanding, but you have to explain the dynamic that exists between men and women in modern time. It has never been easier in human society for humans to reproduce and produce stable, safe offspring. There has never existed a time in human history where it has been safer for humans to reproduce and have children than the present state of society. Yet the birth rate is at the lowest it ever has been in human history. Women feel less secure in all of this than they did when we were living in the fucking rain, in the dirt, with the animals. So you have to ask yourself why. And the conclusion that I've come to at the age of 43 is that corporations justify paying men less because they can justify telling women that because you're not physically as strong as a man, you don't deserve equal pay as a man. And so we will undercut your pay so that you can do the same work and the same labor that he is doing, because even if we try to replace you with him, you physically can't do the same amount of work he's doing anyway. But we can't justify paying him less, so we'll pay you less. And then if we pay you less, then we can pay him less. And the main reason why men need more is because we have to make enough money to take care of ourselves, our wives, and our children. And we need to make enough money so that our wives can stay at home and be comfortable being at home and not working. So I need enough money to pay all my bills and all my utilities and cover her recreation. And you need to pay me that. And the corporations are like, we don't want to pay that. What if we just convince her not to have kids and not to have a desire for recreation? If we can do that, then we don't have to pay him the amount of money that he desires. We can pay less than that. And now society lives in households that can afford to be covered by two people. That's the world that we live in. I didn't create the world that we live in. I'm not responsible for the state of society as it is currently. It is not my responsibility. I'm just giving you the reflective expanse. I'm just giving you a reflection on what I'm seeing. You can agree with what I see or you can disagree with what I see. But this is just the reality that I see as I see it. Right? So the other side of this conversation is, well, Paul, your justification that we should give women money so that they don't have to work, I don't like that idea because it's not fair. As a man, how does that benefit me? If I'm trying to work a job to get a woman and I can't afford a woman because I have to compete against her income, I don't understand. Because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. The sad reality when it comes to the dynamic between men and women is we are not interacting the way we should because we have been put in opposition to each other by the government and by corporations. Corporations have deliberately gone out of their way to destroy the unity between men and women so that they can maintain their fucking control. Because every fucking person, everybody that is in a position of authority and power that has money is married and have children. But they want the low income and the impoverished people of the world to stop reproducing, to stop breeding. Like that's the problem. If the problem of overpopulation was legitimately a concern, then the people that are in the most position of authority and the most comfortable of the planet would consciously make the decision not to have children. All of the politicians and all of the corporations and all of the people that have power and authority and are pushing these agendas and have access to income and have access to contraceptive and birth control and are supposed to be educated have children. They have wives, they have husbands, they have children, but they keep pushing this idea like the problem in society is there's too many people breeding and there's too many kids. Well, why do you have children? Why are you married? Why are you in a relationship? Why are you married and have kids? Like, if you think about it, the same people that are telling you that you shouldn't do these things, Donald Trump has kids. He has a wife. Like he's doing the things that they're trying to convince us that isn't acceptable and that we shouldn't be doing. Right? So that's the position that I'm taking. You know, I'm gonna just leave y'all in the car. I'm gonna just go get my wallet and I'll be back. Can I toss it in here? Nope. Not in there. Not in here. Side pockets. One more spot. All right. Okay, so the question. I believe I left off with the question. Paul, why are we giving women universal basic income if everything you just said is true? If everything I said is true, the reason why we're giving women universal basic income at the low income level is because the vast majority of human problems are a consequence of the insecurities and the the paranoia that exist inside of females based on girls having to become women and what society says that a woman has to be and what society says that a man is. Society tells women not to be women, and society gives the world a corrupted vision of what men are. Men are not monsters. Men are not psychopaths. Men are not running around trying to rape everybody. Like, it creates this unnecessary energy of this hostile image of the average man, while simultaneously creating this unrealistic expectation that women are supposed to try to achieve, right? Like, that drives all of the inequality that exists in our current society, right? So if we give the average 18-year-old girl universal basic income, the thing that everyone will quickly dismiss or forget is that 100% of women, until technology changes, are the mothers of the planet, right? Every last female that is alive will potentially become somebody's mother, right? If a 18-year-old girl starts life off getting universal basic income at the age of 18, to where she doesn't have to think critically about how she's going to survive in a world that just is trying to take advantage of her and extract as much from her and use her up as much as possible, then that girl will be able to make better, sound decisions. If this girl decides that she wants to have children, she can do that without having to think critically about anything with regards to the consequences or the difficulties that go with wanting to bear children, right? The biggest shame that society has put on the average girl in the world is becoming a single parent. And then they flip that shame into empowering them to believe that they should want to be a single parent, right? It's counterintuitive and it's counterproductive to everything that happens. Like you don't, once a girl has a child, there's no reset button. You can't unhave a child, and there's no way for a young girl to have a child without it being from ignorance, right? There's no way for an 18-year-old girl to give birth to a child and have all the answers to all of the problems that will arise without having to go through the motions first, right? But if they know that I will at least be able to afford to take care of myself and my child no matter what, that will allow them the space that they would need to let the father be a father, right? Because men would still have to go out and work. We would still have to go out and work. We would still have to go out and do these jobs. And the most important part is, if all the women have universal basic income, they're gonna stop working. 90%, well, I won't say, let's say 75% of females just completely stop working. When they stop working, that demand for work is gonna be filled by men. Well, if all the women start working, then who's gonna buy stuff? The women are gonna buy stuff because they have universal basic income and they're going to buy stuff. Girls absolutely will spend money on things that they need and don't need. They will still, it's not a catch-all fix of anything. They're still gonna wind up in debt. They're still gonna wind up having problems. They're still gonna wind up having to deal with adversities. But when it comes to the fundamentals of us as human beings on this planet, not being allowed to do the human being thing, I think that is actually the best solution to the problem. I think it's the best solution to the problem. The biggest conflict that we have is the modernization of the relationship between men and women. We don't have a good way for men and women to deal with each other with this artificial thing we created called money. And I know you're going to know, well, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. I get all of that. What I'm saying is that the conflict that exists and persists as a direct consequence of monetary exchange in general is the conflict. That's the problem. That's the reason why men used to give women gifts. Because we used to walk out, we used to leave the cave and go out into the wild and kill stuff and gather berries and come back and give them that. And they would see those calories and be excited and happy that they would be able to survive and sustain their ability to provide and nourish themselves and their offspring. And they was content with that shit. And when things went bump in the night, or when a thunder struck, or when a large predator approached, they would be like, hey, look, go kill it. And then the guy would get up and go run over there and punch it in the face until it was dead. And if she saw that he was fighting something that he was equally matched to, she would run over and add the extra that was necessary to be able to bridge the gap that would allow that two people to be the dominant group. And then when they would have kids, their group would get bigger. And that was the family, and the family was the first government. And there was nothing above the family other than the family. And then religion came along and convinced the family that over all families is Jesus Christ, and you have to serve Jesus Christ. And if you have to sacrifice your husband, and if you have to sacrifice your kids, and if you have to sacrifice your wife for the greater good of Jesus Christ, so that somebody else's husband and kids and wife can prosper at your sacrifice, that's what's good for the group. What's good for the group is good for the individual. But corporations came along and decided, let's indirectly make what's good for the group not necessarily good for us. Let's make what's best for us acceptable for the group. And that's where we're at right now today. That's the world we live in right now today. Everybody has to sacrifice for what? For what? I'm all for sacrifice. I'm all for being of service. I'm all for providing a little bit of myself so that other people can be prosperous. I'm all for that. But is that what we're doing? Right? Like, the President of the United States just attacked Iran again for the last 20-something years. What is the goal? Why are there people in Iran being murdered? For what? For what? If the United States didn't want to pull out of Iran, we should have never left. We should have never packed up our shit and left, right? So what is the goal? What is the end game goal, right? That's what I would like to know, you know. But I can tell you one thing, it'd be a lot harder to wage war in Iran if every last woman in this country was content with their lives. They wouldn't want their sons and daughters to go fight. They would go out and mass protest against the inequality of sending children into war if they could afford to do that. If they could afford to do that shit, they would be out there, every day, mass protest. If society had universal basic income for women, the world may not be better, but it would definitely change a lot of the dynamics. A lot of the dynamics would totally be different. So that's my rant for this morning. Yeah, I don't expect anybody to respond or say anything. I just every 3 days I have to run, and I'm super unmotivated with life right now. Most people will call it depression, but it's not depression. It's a reevaluation of what is important and what is not, what I need to do, what I want to do, and being at odds with having to do things I genuinely am not emotionally and mentally invested in. I don't want to have to do my homework, and I'm only doing homework because I need to pay my rent, and I'm really not interested in jumping through the hoops the way they want me to jump through them, just so they could tell me that it's not good enough and that it's not to the standard that they set, when it's just a waste of my time, because the world has changed in ways that the average person doesn't want to recognize or understand. So yeah, I'm doing that. When I get off work today, I gotta go home and I gotta get ready for my run, and then I've gotta start doing homework because today is run day and running has to get done. So that's pretty much it. As always, my name is Paul Emerson, and I'm giving you my 2 cents.